Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am a food truck business coach and author of Food Truck 101, Beginner to Winner. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. What do you wish you had known when you first started your vending business? This question gets asked a lot on all the different Facebook groups, and usually I don't answer because I really can't think of anything I wish I had known. You see, my very first food vending operation was as a fundraiser operating off my restaurant's food license. I provided food for the shoppers that were attending what was called a Trash or Treasure event. It was a big yard sale that was being held at the National Guard Armory, and all the proceeds from the things that were donated that were in that yard sale were going to go to some charity there in the city that I lived in. Our restaurant at the time sold Coca-Cola products, and way back then, Coca-Cola USA would loan a small food trailer to restaurants as long as they bought the post-mix Coca-Cola products to sell. And the neat thing was Coca-Cola even gave you Coca-Cola branded cups for the food trailer. So on Friday evening, Coca-Cola dropped off the trailer and gave us a real brief description on how to operate the equipment and how to do the hookups, and told us they would be back Monday morning bright and early to pick up the trailer. Since the event only ran for a handful of hours on Saturday, that gave us way more time than we needed for our event. But you got to realize this was in the early 80s, and back then a lot of stuff didn't happen on the weekends. So back then we sold a $1 hot dog, 50-cent Coke, and 50-cent potato chips. With every purchase, we gave coupons and discounts and other things for the restaurant to help people want to go to our restaurant and then buy full price meals. So we were talking about giving away logo t-shirts and coffee mugs and plastic cups. We had helium balloons, and we had all kinds of things to make it look like a big event. We were the only food vendor, and then, of course, the only attraction for this event was for people to go inside and buy the materials that had been donated, clothing and tools and pots and pans and knickknacks and all that kind of stuff that you find at a yard sale. And, of course, again, donating all that money to charity. At the end of the day, and again, it was a short day. At the end of the day, we had raised $425 for the charity. And I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you consider that we were selling basically a combo for $2, that's a whole bunch of people that we served. But I also had to run a P&L statement for that, because that's part of what the restaurant needed was real official numbers. So we donated $425, but the profit and loss statement had to pay for all the food and all the labor, because I had 2 employees with me as well. And then, of course, pay for the Coca-Cola that we had bought and all the other food that we bought, the hot dogs and the potato chips. So after all of those expenses were taken care of, we still had a profit of $425. I was pretty thrilled with that. But then when I sat down and started thinking about it, not only did I pay for all the food and stuff to operate the trailer, but we paid for all the coupon printing, all the flyers, all the balloons, the helium, and everything else that we were giving away. So then I got really excited, because I realized that, man, this was relatively easy money for me and 2 employees to handle all that business and still generate a pretty sizable profit. So the good thing for the restaurant was that event got us a whole bunch of attention. And all those coupons and discount cards that we passed out ended up being redeemed over the next several weeks, which was awesome for the restaurant. So it takes us back to, what do I wish I had known? Well, really nothing, because I already had 3 years of restaurant management experience. I kind of knew what I was doing. I wasn't a great restaurant manager, but I certainly wasn't a dud like you see today in some fast food restaurants. So what do I wish I would have done differently? And I can answer that one real easily. Started my food truck business sooner. Because like I said, at this point, I'd been a restaurant manager for about 3 years, and I was okay. I wasn't awesome. I wasn't great. I did a couple of good things that got the attention of the people higher up in the company, and I did a few okay things, but nothing really special. I was not considered to be an awesome restaurant manager. Back then, I was very reserved. You guys know I'm fairly bright, but I am painfully, almost cripplingly shy, and I have a lot of self-doubt. I always thought, especially back then, that I was just never good enough for anything or anyone, but I still kept trying to do things. But when I looked at my P&L that night after we got everything taken back to the restaurant and got the employees back to their houses, and I'm going in to run my shift for the evening, I'm just looking at that P&L and thinking, that's pretty impressive. Because it divided out to being a 28% profit, and I was just really stunned. I was so stunned that I figured I had to have forgotten something. So I went back over all the expenses and all the receipts and everything that we spent on that trailer to do that event, and still kept coming up with the same numbers. So then the little light bulb went off. Well, if I could do that, why can't I just take that food trailer and go out and do it for myself and generate money for me rather than money for the restaurant or money for a donation? So the next day I went and borrowed the trailer and took it to our central park, and I set up near a playground. Now again, we're talking about a small town in Kentucky in the 1980s, and they normally would have a concession stand that they ran that sold snow cones and other packaged things, candy bars and chips and that kind of thing. But on Sunday, because back then we had the blue laws, and really businesses tried not to be open on Sundays if they could at all help it. So the park would be filled with people that were jogging and playing, and the kids were on the slides and the teeter-totters and the swings and the little merry-go-rounds that everybody just would run and run and run and push and push and push and then make themselves sick to their stomach as they spun around and got dizzy. So we have all these kids playing, but they had nowhere to go buy the drinks and stuff to help them get through the hot days. But I pulled up and set up my little hot dog stand and sold hot dogs, chips, and drinks. Now, I told you I was a restaurant manager, and when I got hired to be a restaurant manager, I've told you that story before, but they treated me really, really well as far as pay went once I proved myself being so young, and they paid me really well. I made more money doing the hot dog cart after I paid for all my expenses than I would have made working that night in the restaurant, which I ended up doing anyway because I had to go back to work. So for about 3 hours, I set up around 11 and ended about, I think, 1:30 or 2, so I could go to be at the restaurant at 4 and then run my shift. I made more money than I would have if you divided out my salary by 5 days for that particular evening. And that little light bulb just kept nagging at me that I need to do this on a consistent basis, because then I can control my own future rather than have to constantly worry about which boss I need to impress to get promoted or get my next raise. So when the trailer went back to Coca-Cola on Monday, it took me about another year or so to get all the information, all the licenses, and all the money together to be able to operate my own business under my own name. But I did it. I didn't give up. You see, in 1981, when I was doing all this, there was no internet. Food carts were a thing in big cities, but they really were unheard of in small towns like I lived in. Social media was 25 years away. Home computers with 20 megabits of memory were still a handful of years away. Every bit of information that I needed to find out about running and operating a food truck or a food trailer or a hot dog cart, I had to go to the library or go to the health department or visit City Hall or visit the fire department or spend time on the old rotary phones dialing the numbers to call these people. Mobile food vending back then was so unheard of that most of the officials had no clue on how to license me or even to tell me if I could even operate one. Some of the permits that officials thought I might need had absolutely nothing to do with food. They even suggested that I get a door-to-door solicitation permit, which some cities actually make food vendors get. It's called a peddling permit now. So I did all of that with what back then there was no other way to do but get on the phone, start calling people, go knock on doors. Today, people can find out how to run a food truck in a matter of an hour and get all the information they need. Every code, every restriction, every regulation is online in some way, shape, or form. And all of those new regulations that have popped up over the last dozen or so years, I grew into those. It didn't seem like a big deal to me. Just one more regulation, big deal. We got to deal with rice in a different way according to the health department codes, big deal. Just one more little thing we have to tweak. But for new people today, it's a huge, massive mound of paperwork and massive mound of red tape and permits and licenses and restrictions that everybody whines about today. Basically, it was for people that have been doing this a long time, death by 1,000 cuts. And amazingly, I survived it for 40 years. So what advice would I give to a newbie that's wanting to start today? First thing is expect delays every step of the way. Expect whatever you think it's going to cost you, it's going to cost way more. There's going to be new restrictions voted in probably annually in some areas. Expect those to happen and be on the cutting edge of when those restrictions fall into place. You want to be able to head them off, become a part of your community, understand what's going on in your local government, especially when it pertains to food vending. There's going to be supply increases. There's going to be supply shortages. There's going to be a lot of competition. There's going to be bad weather. There's going to be well thought out plans that you just know are going to work that will fail miserably. There's lots of hot, hard physical labor, and sometimes there's going to be low profits. And you know what my best advice is? Start today. Don't wait one more second. Do all the research. Plan out your menu. Figure out where you're getting all your supplies. Have yourself a handful of locations that you know will be absolutely awesome when you get your equipment. Then go buy your equipment and buy equipment based on the menu and the research of the laws and regulations in your area. Write a business plan, write a marketing plan, and find somebody to coach you to help you to become awesome. You can't do it alone. You can't do it from reading a Facebook group. You need someone that's lived the life to help you to get great. For me, the work was always fun. I never once thought I was working hard. I was just having fun and getting paid very well to have fun on my hot dog carts and the food trailers I eventually got. You guys can do it, but my best advice is to start right now. And don't give up until you're sitting in that truck looking around going, man, this is the great life to live. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're finding all the information helpful in your food truck business, please consider becoming a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the links in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. If you guys need a business coach that'll help you reach your food truck business's full potential, check out my website. I've got all kind of different services and I can help you get to where you want to go. And we talked about a Facebook group. I have one that's called Food Truck Training. It's got a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new to decades-old veterans, and they're all there to help each other succeed. Again, thank you so much for listening. Come back tomorrow because you know I've got a whole bunch more to say about the food truck industry.